Good afternoon, and welcome to the second JustUs Dialogue Series and Symposium hosted by Johns Hopkins. I'm Audrey Johnson, Director for Economic Innovation and Strategy at Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health System, and moderator for today's panel. Today is all about economic justice and entrepreneurship, and our panelists are true leaders and practitioners in their respective domains. I am very excited about moderating this conversation, but very grateful to share this space and time with them. I now want to invite our panelists to join me on the virtual stage. Welcome. I will briefly introduce you and then give you an opportunity to tell us a bit more about yourself. Shelley Stewart Jr., he is managing partner of Bottom Line Advisory, LLC. Delali Dzirasa is CEO and founder of Fearless. And Jessica Taylor is the National Director of Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Business. And then we have Takia Ross, who is the owner of Accessmatized Makeup Artistry and creator of Kiki Thunder Cosmetics. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we jump into the conversation, tell us a little bit about yourself. Shelley, can you go first?
Sure. Thank you, Audrey, for inviting me. I appreciate it. I'm, as Audrey said, Shelley Stewart. I also lead a group called the $1 Billion Roundtable. It's the 28 corporations in America that spend $83 billion to be exact, with minority businesses, women-owned, LGBT and veteran businesses, and come from 40 years of corporate procurement experience. So I'm happy to be with you all today.
Thank you. Delali?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Delali Dzirasa. I'm the CEO of Fearless. We're a digital services firm here in Baltimore. There's really three core parts of what we do as a business. And the first is our mission: build software with the soul, create a world where good software powers things that matter. And so whether you think about all the amazing tech that's on your phone, et cetera, we're really in that tech for good space to bring that tech into spaces like healthcare, like education, like social justice, et cetera. So that's kind of our core business. Second is we run an incubator called Hutch, which is to create more women-owned, more minority-owned founders within the technology space. And so we've got a goal to spin off at least 25 new companies before 2025. And so we're well on our way of doing that. And lastly, as working with those entrepreneurs, we realized that so many of them just need kind of encouragement and support to kind of get in the game. And we were excited by that and spun off a company called Fearless Sports, which is our streetwear brand, which is really about how do we leverage fashion and social impact to really drive change. And so highlighting change makers in the communities and really empowering all of us to do more and to give back.
Great, thank you. Jessica.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here with my fellow panelists. I'm Jessica Taylor. I'm Managing Director at Goldman Sachs, and I run our 10,000 Small Businesses education program, which is in essence a mini MBA for entrepreneurs to kind of help them take their business to the next level. And so we've served at this point 12,400 businesses across all 50 states in the US, and we're on our way to reaching 20,000 through amazing partnerships, including one with Johns Hopkins, Morgan State University, and the Community College of Baltimore County in Baltimore. And then I'm also leading the charge on one of our kind of newer initiatives under the 1 Million Black Women banner called Black in Business, which is another educational program for Black women sole proprietors. So happy to share more about all that today.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Takia, I see you over there.
Shaking my shoulders. Hello, everybody. My name is Takia Ross. I'm the owner of Accessmatized Makeup Artistry, home of Pretty Mobile Baltimore DMV's first mobile makeup unit, and creator of Kiki Thunder Cosmetics, a small batch manufacturer here in Baltimore. I'm a Baltimore girl through and through, so I'm excited to be here.
Great. Thank you. So we have a lot to cover, and I know that we've already started to get some questions. So we're going to jump right into this. Let's discuss the history of the issue. The first question is for each of you. As we consider the topic of economic justice in the context of entrepreneurship, what do you believe is the most pressing issue we face in this context today? Shelley?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Audrey. But Black businesses face the economic, market, cultural, and institutional barriers, right? And so, and not surprising, they oftentimes overcome them. But those barriers, access to capital, are issues that, as long as I've been around talking about supplier diversity and helping minority businesses, those barriers have been there.
Okay, all right. Delali?
Yeah, I'd say I'd agree with that. I think capital is a big one. I think the other two are opportunities. And so you can have all the capital in the world. If no one's willing to do business with you, you're not, you don't get a chance to get in the door. That can be a huge barrier. And lastly, I think it's education and a blueprint, right? So if you're not sure where to go, how to get started. So I'm so excited about what Jessica and her team are doing with the 10,000 small businesses, right? How do you get this education to figure out how do you scale and grow your business? So I think those are some of the large issues we're facing today.
Jessica, do you have anything to add to that? I know it is a huge question.
I think it's just about access, right? Whether you're talking about capital or access to business deals or access to resources, right? Like 10,000 small businesses. I think fundamentally the access piece is still a major challenge. And at Goldman Sachs, our research team produced a new research piece a year ago, Black Womenomics, which really kind of crystallized, particularly for Black women, the uphill battle and identified a 90% kind of racial wealth gap, right, between Black women and white men. And so, we know that a lot of that is structural, right? And we know that there are biases out there that both Black men and women face that have led to that. And so, what the firm is doing through 1 Million Black Women and through our other philanthropic efforts is trying to kind of break down some of those systemic barriers and provide access.
Great, thank you. And we're going to get into women, Black women, with you and Takia a little later. Takia.
Yes. So, those are really overarching, big topics, but just on the ground level, what it looks like, for all of my entrepreneurs out there, it looks like leasing discrimination. It looks like, over policing and over ticketing and over fining. It looks like policies and procedures that no longer do us justice and are actually hindering small businesses from meeting success. It looks like big businesses getting a lot of tax breaks and smaller businesses not getting those tax breaks. And so it looks like on the ground level, I know it's really large and we talk about access and resources and education, but on a ground level, it looks like you not even being able to get to the building to be able to start your business. It looks like not being able to go into the bank and ask for that loan. So that's what it looks like on the ground level.
Great, thank you for that. Your ability to sort of bring it down, right, to how people feel and what it looked like, I think is very helpful. So Takia and Shelley, according to the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, only 18% of U.S. business owners are minorities. And even though the number of minority-owned firms has grown 35% in the past 10 years, the average gross receipts for those firms dropped 16%. What do you think is the case? Why is that the case?
Yeah, you want to go and take a shot? I'll let you go.
So my first thing is those are the businesses that they know about. So those are the businesses that are absolutely out here saying that I'm running a business. Those are the businesses that they're tracking. There are so many other businesses that are out there that are not being tracked. There are businesses out there who are flying under the radar and who are doing really, really well, but we would never know because we don't have that information. So that's number one. And a lot of it is systemic reasons for why they're not coming out from underneath the cloak of I'm a business owner. One, a lot of them don't even know that they're running a business. I know I didn't when I started. And so I think there is a lot of things that we need to dissect before we just look at the numbers of what the numbers are. Yes, they are saying that, but what other factors are leading Black and minority entrepreneurs, women, to not claim entrepreneurship? Is it something else? Shelley, what do you think?
Well, look, I live like you in the world of minority businesses. And I can tell you that even on a startup perspective, only 4% of Black businesses that start up are successful, right? And so I think, and again, it goes back to making sure people understand that they have a business, making sure people have access to understanding how to run a business. You just can't pop up and make up a business. You have to have some strategies, you have to have some capital, and you have to have some support, by the way, right? And just a number. Black consumers spend $835 billion in this country, right? And we make up 13 to 14% of the population. So we have spending power, right? Mm-hmm. And so the issue is how do we have the opportunity, the access to set up businesses? And by the way, there are organizations out there that are focusing on helping minority businesses more so now than I've ever seen. And I've been around a while, right? And I can tell you, even from a corporate perspective, these corporations have made huge commitments, and we're not going to let them off the hook, but we're going to try to help our Black and brown businesses that are out there.
No, great points. And we're going to talk a little bit about the investment trend that we've been seeing from corporate America. I want to ask Delali and Shelley, how do we make business ownership more accessible to everyone? So we've talked about access, we've talked about capital, and then, in a context of that being barriers, but how do we make this more accessible to everyone?
Yeah, I can start on that one. So I think some of the ways in which we can make it more accessible really begins with not just passive, but very active mentorship and guidance, right? And so if you've reached a level of success, and that doesn't mean you need to be $1 billion company, right? Wherever you are, there's someone else behind you that needs something that you have, some information. So getting that culture of learning and sharing is huge. And so once you do that, and you can create a bit of a blueprint, a roadmap for people. I mean, there's talent everywhere, all throughout Baltimore City. And folks aren't sure, like, what steps do I need to follow? For example, in our incubator hutch, there was a young lady I was speaking to, wasn't sure if she wanted to start a business, all the talent in the world, right? Wasn't sure if she could do it, wasn't sure what the name was, how it was going to be structured, the strategy. And we got her in our program, and within 18 months, she closed her first $500,000, right? And growing and scaling, right? And just one example of so many that we encounter every single day that they just say, all right, just point me in the right direction. Where do I need to go? I'm happy to do the legwork. They're happy to hustle. But providing that blueprint and access becomes a huge ability for us to be able to open the doors for other people.
No, that's a good point. I like the active mentorship and guidance. I think that would make a lot of difference. Shelley.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Inside the $1 Billion Roundtable, what we decided to do was, there are a number of successful Black and brown businesses, and we've gone out to them and asked them to help us create a mentorship program for smaller businesses. Mm-hmm. These are people like Dave Stewart, Janice Bryant, folks that have, was small when they started, but their businesses have been extremely successful, right? And they've agreed to do it. So I think we have about 5 now. And by the way, when those kinds of things exist in a number of platforms, the U.S. government, I do some work with MBDA. They have some similar activities on. I just talked to the new director last week, and he's thinking about this in the same way, because they touch a lot of businesses through the MBDA and as well as Small Business Administration. So I do think it's incumbent on the businesses that have been successful to sort of, just like everything else we do, reach back and pull businesses through, help them create sustainable platforms and sustainable opportunities, introduce them to their customers. These are all the things that we're asking our $1 Billion Roundtable mentors to do for some of the businesses, some of the small businesses that are out there.
And I just want to chime in on that, Audrey. I mean, I think mentorship is really important, because Takia, you even made the point, right, that some people don't even know that they're running businesses, right? And I've been talking to a lot of businesses about our new initiative, Black in Business. I was getting a lot of questions of, well, my situation is this, or my business is this. Do I qualify? Is this? And basically the underlying question is this legit what I'm doing? right? And so there's a fundamental, and Takia, you correct me if I'm wrong here, because you're the business owner here, but what I was perceiving is that there's in society, right, oftentimes what people of color and Black people are producing or creating, it's not given inherent value, right, off the jump. And so I think over time, we can't help but like internalize some of that, right? So when we are doing things that are cool, that are contributing to the economy, right, we don't get that initial validation. And so that's why I think the mentorship piece is really important, right? Because that's our community saying to business owners who are just starting out, no, that is legit, right? That is valid. Your idea is groundbreaking, actually, right? Let us now surround you with the support, the resources, et cetera, to kind of help you on your way. So there's a little bit of just kind of like validating the importance of what, we do in communities of color.
No, I'm glad you jumped in, because that's a great point. And I, like I said, we have questions coming in. There's one that I'll pose a little later around what is actually economic justice. So when you think about the value that we don't give, right? I think it's related to other systematic issues that we've faced. But I'm gonna jump back to this question with Jessica and Takia. What are some of the biggest barriers facing female and minority entrepreneurs in operating a business? And how do we ensure the success of diverse entrepreneurs? And you started to get toward that, Jessica, when you jumped in.
Well, go ahead. I got to follow Takia's lead on this.
Listen, you already put it down. You put it down when you just had your last statement. And so, of course, we know about access to capital. We know access to resources. We know access to educational opportunities. However, like Jessica said, I'm just going to say it. Stop dumbing down my business. Don't dumb my business down. So when I do come to you for the capital, for the resources, for the community, for the education, we have to pay attention to how we're speaking power over these women in business who are coming to you with something that they know is working because they're doing it every day. Most of the time, these women aren't just coming up with something and pulling it out the sky. They've been doing this for years. And when they go to the powers that be, they dumb down our businesses. And I've been you do makeup. Oh my goodness, you do hair. Oh, you bake those cakes. You know what I mean? You're dumbing down what I do. No, I change lives. No, I make women beautiful. No, I am feeding the community. So I think we need to, one, do that. And then we need to evaluate these businesses the way they needed to be evaluated. And so, yes, I may be here today, but I can be somewhere else tomorrow. And all I need is for you to support me and encourage me and motivate me. And like Delali said, point me in the right direction. I don't need you to take me. Matter of fact, you ain't even got to open the door. Just leave the breadcrumbs. We coming. Crack it a little bit. I'm going to come through it. But I think a lot of times we don't do that for women in business. And we talk about the big ones, money, finances, but we don't know what we're doing to the psyche of a business when we don't evaluate how important this business is to that person and their community.
No, great. Jessica, did you want to add on to that or?
Not much to say to that. I think that's the truth. That's what I've been. I mean, we've had, we just actually closed our application. We had an application deadline for Black in business yesterday. And so over the last month, I've been having a lot of conversations with particularly Black women entrepreneurs looking to apply to the program. And so that's been just one of my takeaways. Now, we all know in terms of, the challenges are kind of what the research has shared, right? It's access to lack of access to capital, lack of kind of meaningful relationships and networks, lack of actual sponsorship to say, to Shelley's point, I'm going to connect you with my customers. I'm going to get you in the room where you can get this contract, right? You need people to kind of co-sign on you, right? And actually sponsor you. And so those are all the things that are lacking for Black women. But I think, importantly, it's this, we got to start validating this stuff, right? And so that's why I'm really happy to kind of be where I am and be at a place like Goldman that's saying, no, this is not just a trend, right? 1 million Black women. We're putting $10 billion to this over 10 years. And by the way, even before the 1 million Black Women Initiative launched a year ago, we had been doing kind of philanthropic entrepreneurship work for over a decade. So it's just not, in terms of how we do philanthropy and how we do impact, it's always over time, right? And it's always about building relationships that last over time and supporting people over time. It's not just, a trend for us. And so it does feel good to kind of be at Goldman, to be a part of 1 million Black women, and to know that this is the real deal, right? And the programs that we're talking about are ones that we're focused on for the long term.
No, that's awesome. And you're right. Goldman has been doing a lot for a long time. And we're going to get to sort of what other organizations have been doing most recently, and kind of discussing what can happen in terms of, what's been put out and what's been committed to. Before we get to the current landscape, I want to ask Shelley and Delali a question. So Goldman is doing great. Hopkins is doing some things. How can anchor institutions collaborate with organizations to create wealth equity in communities?
Shot at it. I can tell you what I know is happening, and I speak from the context of the members of the $1 Billion Roundtable. We have a number of healthcare companies in the BDR, and just last week they call this the Circles of Success, and they have taken suppliers that do business with them and have them come on and share their backgrounds. And I didn't happen to attend one last week because I was traveling, but I got feedback not from the healthcare companies that were on there, but from some of the banks that were on there, saying, you know what, we use those services just like they do. So the whole idea is to share and open the doors for businesses that may not have the same opportunity. I was talking to Jessica's point, the introduction, that is that is a responsibility that we all have, is to make sure we're creating this network of Black and brown businesses and women businesses that we are happy to introduce to our peers. And I'll just give you, I've been struggling with sort of this whole mentality around minority businesses are small. Well, that's because they made us think we need to be small, right? And that's not the point anymore, right? And even some of the regulations cause you, after you get too big, to sort of lose your minority status, right? And so we're thinking a little differently. I'm involved with an organization called Project Black. It's a spinoff of Ariel Capital, Melanie Hobbs and John Rogers. It's called Ariel Alternatives, and we're going to create larger scale Black and brown businesses. And it's not going to be easy, but I just finished talking to one of the CEO of the company we're acquiring. And I can just give you an example. When he got there, he's Hispanic. There was one other person of color in the organization. There's 13 now. The other opportunity that he's created is to bring in other diverse businesses to do business inside his company. So we're creating an ecosystem that is going to impact everyone. And that's the only way that this thing works, is not just the big guys, but driving it down to the responsibility of all companies to do business with minority and women-owned businesses.
I love, Shelley, I love everything about what you just said. And I think you're spot on. It's an economics problem, right? And so many times you see organizations defer the responsibility where, we can't find the minority contractors. And so what we'll do is we'll award to someone else. And then you're now responsible to tell us how you're going to meet your goal of 5% or 10%, right? And they try to defer the responsibility for someone else. And I think one thing that an anchor could do is to keep that responsibility. It is on you. You make sure that you're meeting your goals. And I'd argue to have audacious goals, right? Goals that really aren't crazy in the grand scheme of things, but why 5%? Why 10%? Match the demographics of your city. And what I've seen time and time again in business is corporations, companies, they will follow the money, right? And there's many instances in where larger institutions, larger vendors or other vendors will get behind the minority, the women vendor, and prop them up because they want access to that deal. And so when people get really serious about the commitment and make long-term goals such as that, I think it begins to shift the needle in a very measurable way. It's just too difficult when you've got percentages like 3 and 5% to actually build capacity in some of these smaller organizations. They can't survive off of that. And so in your effort to help them, you're crippling them for forever, right? So they never get in a seat where they can actually be in the lead in the prime seat. And so I think having very strong goals there and work with those companies has been huge. I mean, that's been kind of secret to our success. Shelley, you talked about larger minority companies. Because of that very fact, I mean, we're the largest software developer in the region, right? But it's because we've been very intentional about we want to be in the lead seat, building our capacity so we can then help build this ecosystem that you talk about.
No, that's important. Thank you for that. So we've been in this history space of sort of why, right, where we are. I have a reminder. We have folks watching virtually here in the virtual auditorium, but also we're live streaming to Facebook and YouTube. So I want to let people know to continue to add your questions to those respective comment sections. We will get them here, but also you can text questions. So for those that can hear my voice and they're watching us, you can text them to 22333 and type JHUWL in the message. And so we'll get those questions as well. So I'm going to shift to the current landscape, right? And talk about, because we're in a pandemic, so a lot has happened, right? That for all the things we just discussed, this is like another layer. So I want to sort of lift up some thoughts and sort of where we are. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, pandemic entrepreneurship led to the largest increase in new business applications in recorded history. What do you think? Why do you think this is the case, Takia?
So I think part of it is new business owners' willingness to bet on themselves. You know, at a certain point during the pandemic, you had to make some really hard decisions. And a lot of times those decisions were based around whether or not your employer was going to keep you on, whether or not you got to go back in the office. Did you need to be vaccinated? Did you need a mask? What are those kids doing? You know, are we virtually learning? You know, I was in the 3rd grade for the 4th time, you know, and that was not a good thing for me. I'm trying to tell you, Audrey, you know, and so one of the things that a lot of business owners now, the newer ones that jumped in, they realized that I can bet on myself. That I no longer want somebody to tell me what I can and cannot do. I want to define success for myself. And we have been taught over and over again that success looks like, you know, getting, you know, a good government job, getting your degree, getting all of this. And a lot of people did it. And they had a good government job that left them during the pandemic, left them right where they were. And they said, you know what, maybe what I was thinking before isn't really true. So I think that's one thing. People said, I'm going to try this thing and see how it works. And they did it. They saw some success and they said, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do this.
No, it's great. And the pandemic, I think it was reflective, right? A reflective experience for all of us.
And life was too short. Like a lot of times, like even, you know, in the midst of this, you realize that life is too short for me to not follow my dreams. You know, I don't want to leave this earth with a shoulda, a coulda, or a woulda, you know, and so I can get another job. But, you know, it's just like this dream that's inside of me. I want to try it. I want to see if I can do it. And they tried in this pandemic and they did it. And so they're going to keep trying.
No, I like that. Delali, what would you add? Why do you think this is the case?
Yeah, everything Takia said. I mean, as I sit back and think about it, it's almost like it was the perfect storm, right? And so one, you've got, you know, massive layoffs across the country, a lot of uncertainty that's happening. And so people wanting to take responsibility. So that's kind of brewing in the pot. A couple months in, you know, we all get to witness the murder of George Floyd, right? When everyone is forced to pause and just sit there and, like, you know, take in what's happening. And so Shelley spoke about this, but just massive $1 billion commitments as far as, going more to DEI and racial justice and economic justice across the country. So now you've got potential funding, right? That's spinning up. That's a part of this pipeline. And then kind of the third element I see is we all had a chance to sit home for like a year and just to think, right? Be alone with our thoughts, cooped up, and it's only been so many times you can watch everything on Netflix before you're starting to process, what do I want to do with my life? And then thinking about just the fragility of life with the pandemic itself. And so all of that stuff is happening at the same time. And then you layer on, I think, what the last piece is, which is another administration in the White House that's making a commitment around DEI and a commitment to fixing systemic issues. And so all of that stuff happening at the exact same time creates a storm for an entrepreneur saying, maybe this is the time I ought to try this. If there's ever a window, like this is the window. So I think all of those pieces probably played a factor.
No, you're right. You're right. I like what Takia said, right? I think within this space of how we make a living and the choices we've made, how we put our dreams on the back burner, right? We realized that during this time, things were out of control, even for those jobs that we thought were stable, right? And so, of course, you had a lot of people that were willing to take a risk on themselves, given all of the things that you and Delali just mentioned. Jessica and Shelley, how can we use that momentum, right? So it's been a lot that's happened in the last couple of years around entrepreneurship to increase the diversity of American entrepreneurship landscape.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Listen, to everything everyone just said, I feel like this is a moment in time that has momentum, okay? And it's because of all the things everyone said. And I think that I've not seen in my career more focus on helping minority businesses from all angles, from the big banks, from corporate America. The thing is, we've got to capture it before they change their minds, right? Because this is, like I said, it feels like a movement, but you never can tell. It might just be a moment. And at the end of the day, there are so many opportunities out there. There are dollars out there for folks. They just have to go find them. And I'm on the board of a social impact fund, Black social impact fund, that's going out and creating small minority businesses, not large ones, small ones. Right? They've raised money to go do this. There's money out there. Just have to go find a way to have a strategy, a plan, and the ability to articulate that plan so that the folks with the dollars are willing to give them to you. And I can tell you that everyone's attention is turned to this. So if you're out there and you're thinking about, and you have a business strategy, now's the time to go pitch it, right? Because people there are dollars sitting out there. And by the way, corporations made the commitment, but they don't know how to fulfill it.
Okay.
Well, I'll say, from a Goldman Sachs perspective, one of the ways that we want to continue to drive this surge in entrepreneurship is to provide the programs, right, that we recently announced. So, and it is to fulfill the commitment, right? So just speaking from a Goldman Sachs perspective, just on the 1 million Black women front, right, as I mentioned, that's a $10 billion investment commitment. We've already committed over 700 million of that on the investment front, and nearly 10 million on the philanthropic front. So, and we're tracking that, right? And so we work for a CEO, David Solomon, who was very keen on, making commitments, but establishing the KPIs and the metrics to actually drive forward to accomplishing. So we track, what it is that we commit to, and we publicize that. And so, from a Goldman perspective, one of the ways that we're helping to kind of continue this entrepreneurship boom is through kind of programs like Black in Business, right? Is to say, to Shelley's point, if you have an idea, go ahead and start it. And now, I'm proud to say through our Black in Business initiative, we're able to support those folks, right? As they strategize and grow around, an idea, a business idea. And so really it's about kind of providing resources. Another thing I'll say is, we're 1 year into this 1 Million Black Women Initiative, but we recognize that there have been particularly kind of Black women-led organizations who have been working with small businesses before us, right? So we recognize in a lot of ways that we're newer to the market. And so it's been really important for us to connect with those Black women-led organizations, learn from them, right? And then bring them in the fold, elevate them, amplify them through our own efforts, because we really see this as an ecosystem play. This is not about us saying we're the only ones in the field, nobody else matters. This is us saying we're here to support and build out an ecosystem, and to make that ecosystem easily accessible. So another thing that I'm kind of really focused on is, for the folks that we plan to serve through Black in Business, make sure that they can then connect to Nikki Porcher at Buy From a Black Woman, right? Or Aisha Taylor at Sisters in Business, right? To make sure they can then still connect with those organizations that are providing kind of amazing resources for them, and to make that turnkey, right? I think one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of small businesses is that, okay, yeah, there's a lot out there, but like, how do I navigate it? And it takes time. It takes time away from the business to navigate all those resources, to submit all those applications, to attend all those information sessions. So we're really focused on making things, not just providing the resource, but making access to those resources as seamless and easy as possible. And then making it easier for businesses who we come in contact with to then connect with not just our resources, but others that have been out there before we came to the market.
No, that's helpful. We got a question, and I'm just going to read it. It says, Black business ownership has surged, largely driven by Black women, and yet Black people are still largely underrepresented in VC funding. So Delali and Shelley, they asked a question of how do we fix this? And can you all, I know Jessica just shared about the 1 million Black women, Black in business. We know about the 10K, right? So can you share maybe some other programs or grants that you all may know of or that you're associated with to help bridge that gap?
I don't have, I was just trying to think of the names of it, but there are a couple out there from a VC perspective, and I've been on some calls, not just from a funding perspective, but wanting more African Americans on their boards, because they're void of us on the boards. And so, but on the West Coast, this is particularly prevalent because there's a good number of VCs out there, and I've been able to talk to a few. So they're thinking about it the same way corporate America is thinking about it, right? Because at the end of the day, their job is to create companies and spin them out. And if the people are not willing to put money into them, if they don't have people that look like us in those organizations, right? So I don't know of any specific programs, but I know that there's some out there that do exist to put some money into new ventures and startups.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm not as versed in this space. And my lens is primarily in the technical scene. So from a Baltimore perspective, if you're in Baltimore in the tech scene, then the folks that I would probably talk to in this space are McKeever Conwell. He's a Rare Breed Ventures. Look him up. It's a good resource. Jeff Cherry from Conscious Venture Fund. And he runs also an accelerator, Conscious Venture Lab. And Lou Cooper is creating a $250 million fund to support West Baltimore and technology. So he's Latimer Ventures. So that's Lou Cooper from Latimer, McKeever Conwell from Rare Breed, and Jeff Cherry from Conscious Venture.
Okay. Now, Takia, I know you are, you're in the seat looking for the funding, right? Do you have any programs that you can share with our viewers that may help in this, capital space?
So first things first, I think for growing businesses, like we talk about VC funding, but do you want VC funding? What type of funding do you want? I think that's the first thing that business owners need to really hash out, within their business. VCs are in the business of making money. And so they are looking for viable money-making businesses so that they can get a percentage of your business and or get their money back. So is that the type of funding that you want? And depending on what stage you are in business, that might not be true. You may not even be at VC stage, or you may not even want to go the VC route. So you need to figure out what kind of funding do you need? Do you need traditional funding with, loans and lines of credit and that sort of thing? And that's building a relationship with your business banker. So that's going into your bank and really building that relationship and letting your bank work for you. Do you want to go after grants? And pitching, that's how I raised money for my business, was pitching for money that was readily available and that they were giving away to me for free that I did not have to pay back. So I think you need to figure out, one, what type of funding you're looking for, and two, where you're going to go about getting it. I know Black Girl Ventures is an amazing organization for Black women, Black and brown women founders who are looking for funding. They just did some pull-up and pitches. They do pitch competitions all across the country. So that's a great resource for Black and brown women in business. You may want to look into I Fund Women. I Fund Women puts out a ton of resources for women in businesses. And these are resources that are all over the country. Hello Alice is another one that's doing some work and putting out information for women founders, who are looking for funding, and not just the traditional funding, not VC funding, but also grants and other opportunities for you to go. And then I want to challenge you to figure out, sometimes you need a customer. Like at point blank and period, you need to get the people that's going to pay you. And so sometimes you're looking for capital, and what you really need is a customer. And so you need to do the homework and the real job in your business to grow your customer base and really get those customers in the door that's going to pay you.
No, thank you. I'm laughing, but it's true, right? And I think the business of entrepreneurship is really being educated, right, on that growth strategy that you have and where you may be at different points and what kind of financing and support is required. We are, of course, getting very close. And so I'm going to shift us to, activating someone in the comments that preach. She's always preaching. That's why we give her this platform, because she has a word for our entrepreneurs and our small business community, and we want to make sure they hear it. So jump into activating the community. When thinking about how to activate the community around this work, I pose the next question to each of you, or you can pick and choose. Does diverse business ownership lead to diverse job creation or diverse wealth building? Or is there some kind of combination?
All of the above. Good. I mean, that's what this is all about.
That's right? What it's about.
And particularly if you're, I gave you the example of this Sorensen company that the goal is to locate the businesses in the community, hire people from the community, have people that look like the community run the company, right? That's where we should be going, right? Because that's the only way the economic impact gets felt in our communities is by not creating and growing a business and moving to the suburbs, right? How about, staying in Baltimore? By the way, I love Baltimore. But I really think that's what it takes, and I'm not sure we always think about it in that context.
Right.
I would say all of the above as well. And I mean, we did some research back in 2020 focused particularly on the Black businesses that we had served through 10,000 small businesses. And it was very clear that our Black business owners, kind of more so than their white counterparts, serve in community leadership roles. They mentor other businesses in the community more so than their white counterparts. So to me, that all feeds to not just kind of paying it forward and pulling others up with you, but it also just leads to hiring, right? If you're that connected into the community, when it does come time for you to hire in your business, that's where you're going to look, right? And so I think diverse business leadership does lead to a diverse job market, as well as all the above. So for sure.
Great. Thank you. So we have a question that I definitely want, Shelley touched on this in his comments. What are some ways that we can keep businesses local and in the city, right? How do we keep businesses in Baltimore, Delali?
Yeah, I think that's an easy one. Patronize them. Economics. Put your money in those businesses, period. I think so many times we make it so difficult that we got to have a program. We need a commission. We need a study done. It's like, put your dollars there, right? And I think that becomes so interesting because, people tend to defer the responsibility a lot on this, where someone else is responsible for the fix. Someone else has to make it. But it requires sometimes some sacrifice. I'm going to choose to stop doing something. I'm going to stop buying this toothpaste so I can start buying this other thing.
Right.
And oftentimes we make it an add-on like, oh, I like this toothpaste. So I'll maybe try this one once so I can say I bought some from a Black company, but then I'm going back to my original toothpaste. And so we're asking for long-term changes. If we want to see long-term change in our community, we've got to make long-term changes in our economic and buying habits.
Well, thank you.
$5 billion worth of Black consumer spend, right? We have power, right? And we have to use it and spend it with each other.
Yep, that's it. Spend our money in our communities with our business owners. Okay, great. Thank you. So we're gonna move forward. We're getting close to time. And as I wish we had more time because I think this conversation we can keep going. And there's some comments where people are appreciative. So people are thanking Hopkins and thanking you all for being a part of this conversation. I believe we addressed a lot of our questions and things that have come through, but thinking about a path forward, right? And acknowledging that we have a diverse audience today, including policymakers, maybe some elected officials, community members, students, faculty, business owners, maybe even some funders, right? What is the advice to them and what is the call to action? And so if each of you can think about that and give me some thoughts around that, normally we have these, when we do the JustUs dialogue, is one to uplift folks that are advocating and driving this work. So again, I'm grateful for each of you being here, but there are also people that just sit in the community and they want to understand how can I contribute, right? I'm not a VC fund, but I want to be able to help. What can I be doing differently? So I'll start with you, Takia. What is it that you would tell our audience today, as diverse as they are, giving them advice on how they can help to push this forward and improve, right, the American landscape of entrepreneurship where it is diverse?
So there are a number of things. I think Delali hit on it in the economics about making sure that we're patronizing our growing businesses within our community. I would start with there. For our anchor institutions, I would challenge them to, one, educate growing businesses on how to procure with you. Right? So what is your procurement process? How can they get in? How can they make sure that they're invoicing and providing the services and supplies that you need? And then take a really hard look at your net 30, net 60, net 90. Like in reality, when you're dealing with growing businesses, I need net now. I don't need to wait 90 and 120 days for you to give me, to pay me for the service that I'm providing. I think that's something that we need to absolutely look into. And for our elected officials, I challenge you to look at our antiquated and outdated laws and policies and things that are absolutely hindering and putting a wrench in our growing businesses. There are a number of them where we're getting ticketed and fined and stuff like that. And you're seeing an outpouring of businesses going out into the counties, going into surrounding areas, because it is just not economically viable for me to be here if you're going to ticket my mobile unit for sitting in the same spot for 48 hours. I think we need to really start addressing some of these systemic boundaries that are preventing our businesses from growing. And then you would see an influx of growth in our populations.
And just to kind of, that's really powerful, Takia, and I want to kind of add, so on the 10,000 small businesses front, about 2 years ago, we launched 10,000 Small Businesses Voices, which is an advocacy platform for the businesses that we've served, right, through our education program. And, just this month, we kind of released their voice, their perspective on kind of key kind of policy recommendations that the small business owners kind of are asking for. Now, a lot of this is at the federal level, but kind of particularly on workforce, right? An overwhelming majority of our businesses are really finding it, hard to hire and identify talent, and that's really hurting their bottom line. And in particular, some of what they're asking for is kind of subsidies around the cost of training a workforce and certification. On the access to capital side, we've kind of already talked about this, but in particular, businesses are seeking kind of additional training and assistance around how to get capital ready. And then, childcare is a big deal. We haven't really talked a lot about that today, but our businesses are finding that, over half of their employees are dealing with childcare challenges. And we know that was exacerbated during the pandemic. And so they're kind of asking for the ability to kind of streamline and enhance some of the tax credits for childcare providers, so that there can be more flexible hours, and so that's more affordable for employees, so they can show up to work and start the businesses and lead the businesses. And then kind of the last piece was on kind of government contracting. So kind of talking about ways to simplify the processes for small businesses to be able to contract with the government. And this ties into the point Takia just made about anchor institutions, right? It's like, if you really want to do business with us, you're going to have to kind of change the way you work, right? You can't apply the same system, but expect different results. And so small businesses are also asking of that of the federal government when it comes down to procurement opportunities for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's yours.
I echo all of that, right? Make it business friendly, make it easy to do business with you and provide opportunities. I think another piece, and so I agree with those things. I think another thing is really getting good about telling the stories of like these wins that we have. And there are wins that are happening, and really create a culture of that where we celebrate it. So Fearless, we supported the Downtown Partnership in launching the Boost program. The Boost initiative was looking to bring more Black-owned storefronts to downtown Baltimore. And it's funny, I started getting texts literally from around the country, like, how do we get in? Baltimore's giving away storefronts, right? And so the sense of like, there's opportunity here and there's a support system and people wanted to be here. And the more we do that, the more that we help the people here actually win, they will tell those stories. Those more businesses will come in and our whole economy will thrive. I think the second one is actually a bit personal, right? And so I think people need to understand that there's personal advantage, right? You think about, traditional market systems, right? And people are best product, best service, and what's best for me and capitalism and all of that. And that's great. But how do you make sure that you align that incentive with me helping in this community is good for me, right? Pandemic highlighted that, how connected we all are. And when people started to get in line for their shots, no one said, was this the one that little Black girl from Baltimore created, right? So, Dr. Court with the Moderna vaccine, but she's saving lives and it helps everybody. And so when we realize that there is untapped potential, there might be a little girl in West Baltimore that has a cure for cancer and doesn't have a laptop. That affects my kids, that affects my grandkids. And when it becomes personal, it doesn't become a component of my DEI office. It becomes something very, very deeply in terms of my long-term value. And so it becomes a challenge that we've got to solve as a society. And so I think it's got to be personal.
And Takia sparked something on a thought that I had, and it's about when I retired from corporate America and I created my LLC, and my first piece of business I got with a pharmaceutical company, and they sent me an email that was going to link me to the payment system. It took me 2 days to do it, right? Because it was so complicated, right? And by the way, then I said, you know what? I did that to all my suppliers my whole career, right? And I'm a one-person shop, right? So my point here is you got to make it easy. Corporations have to make it easier for us to do business with small businesses and even medium-sized businesses, because I send out the emails and I do the billing, right? Just like everybody else does, right? And when I went through the system and said it took me 2 days to figure out how to get paid, I was annoyed. And then I thought about, oh my God, I did this for 30 years to everybody else, right? So make it easier for our businesses to do business with you.
No, those are all great points. You all are getting so much love in the comments. Takia, you are AKA bomb.com. There's new business owners on here that are happy to just be receiving this information, these nuggets. And we've gotten several comments about how phenomenal the panelists have been. So our community, if you're listening, patronize the businesses in your city, right? Buy from them. Anchor institutions, make it easy, right? Cut that net 30 to net now. And then I like what Delali said, we have to do a better job at telling our stories, right? Because there is some amazing things happening. And so the more that we uplift and that awareness is done, I think it would help make the work a little easier down the line. And then I liked what Delali said, this is life, right? It's personal. It's our the way we work, the way we live and thriving. And so people thinking about, the decisions you make. Shelley talked about the 834 billion spending power that we have. I think that's what you said, right? That's a lot of money. So if you think about where you're spending your money, you could make some differences in what happens around you. So I am going to start to close us out. I feel that our mission was accomplished today. I was grateful starting this thing, and I'm even more grateful here on the other end of it. I thank each of you. Again, the purpose of this conversation is to talk about economic justice and entrepreneurship. We've heard from a panel that, again, I think you all are notable. I didn't know how many years, but I know Shelley's like in his second career, right? And doing amazing things. So I'm just honored to be on this panel with him. Delali, I hear about what you're doing. Congratulations. And Takia, we have had you on our platform several different times. And Jessica, it's nice to meet you as family, right? Because Johns Hopkins is the host site for the 10KSB here. Thank you, each of you. Again, this has been delightful. I have a few things that I need to say before. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot it to you because I want people to know how to get to you. So Takia, if you can come off and let us come off on mute and tell them real quickly how they can find you, how they connect with you after this panel.
All right, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Accessmatized, and I'm on LinkedIn at Takia Ross.
Thank you. Shelley.
I can't hide, so you can find me in a lot of places, but for Bottom Line Advisory, it's Bottom Line Advisory LLC, and that's LinkedIn and wherever else you want to look, I'm there.
Okay, thank you. Delali.
Yeah, the best way to find me, I'm on Delali D on social media. That's DELALID.
Thank you. Jessica?
I'm best on LinkedIn, Jessica Taylor, Goldman Sachs.
Thank you. So I want to also say thank you to our audience for joining us today. Remember, we have 2 more weeks of this series, and I invite you to come back next Wednesday, March 23rd, for the Economic Justice and Employment. That's going to be a really great conversation, and it's focusing on workplace culture and the diversity of business leadership. On the 30th, we have a healthcare panel, we have an investment panel, and then we're closing out the symposium with a fireside chat with Johns Hopkins President Ronald J. Daniels and Alicia Wilson, Vice President of Johns Hopkins Economic Development. If you have time today, stick around in the virtual platform. If you're in the virtual platform, we do have a system of getting some points. We have some exhibitors, Goldman Sachs, 10,000 small businesses there. You can learn more about that program. We have the U.S. Black Chambers. They have a new program with Issa Rae, right, and American Express called Buy Black. So you need to be in that database. We also have Heat Cores, which is an internal program here, but we're providing curriculum and COVID information to schools globally. And so to learn more about that and how that can be helpful to you, Hopkins Local, right? Hopkins has a strategy to hire, buy, build, and invest. So figure out how you can connect with us, what that looks like. And then Entrepreneurship Matters, we do a weekly series where we feature entrepreneurs to tell their journey. So all of that is in this platform, and you can find out about that. I encourage you to do that. Connect with our office because we're continuously staying connected in this space. We're at JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and Johns Hopkins Connects on LinkedIn. You can email us. I want to thank our community partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Johns Hopkins Health Education and Teaching Corps, Hopkins Local, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, 10,000 Small Business, U.S. Chamber, U.S. Black Chamber, and Buy Black. And then, of course, again, I thank you all. I know we're over time. This has been wonderful, and I appreciate your time and just your voice in this conversation. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks for having us.